the season starts and we find out that's still KD, then he's right. Then you should have, your expectation should be that you get out of the Eastern Conference because you have KD and Kyrie and several other excellent players, Vert and Dinwiddie and a coach who obviously has a good relationship with his top stars. We'll see how he coaches. And Brooklyn is the backdrop, a city that's so thirsty for a basketball championship. An NBA championship. Hasn't had one since before I was born. I was born August 73. They won in January of 73. So I get it, if he's healthy. But at this moment, we don't know that KD is the KD that we know, right? We don't know how he's going to come back from the Achilles. Because as I was reminded by some members of the Seattle Storm, Breonna Stewart notwithstanding, Achilles almost always mean that the athlete's not the same going forward. If KD is 80% of himself, think someone like Paul George, right? Excellent player, an all-star, but not KD. Now all of a sudden, if I said, what about if it was Paul George and Kyrie? Would everyone assume they're going to make the finals? I don't think so. Now, if he's KD, if he's 100% KD or close to it, get out of the East, man. You got enough. We do not know that. To assume that is actually to put too much on KD. He has to be a 1 in a million medical case, including a 1 in a billion player.
And what if he is? I understand that you say they should get out of the East. What about in terms of the West? How do they stack up?
Well, we have to see how. I don't think that they go all the way next year, but I do think if KD is KD, it's reasonable to have the expectations get to the finals. I don't think it's reasonable to have the expectation that KD is KD. So I have to say, as far as Steve Nash talks about fortune playing a role, in terms of the health of the team, it's got to help them.
Where are you on this?
KD is on the clock. That's where I'm at with it. Let's face reality here. We've talked about this in the past. KD electing to go to Golden State. Obviously, LeBron is getting a lot of shine. KD believes he's the best in the world. Hell, I believe he's the best in the world. He's that sensational. He's a scoring machine. Career 27-point-per-game scorer, just like LeBron James is. He goes to Golden State, wins back-to-back titles. Should have three-peated if he hadn't torn his Achilles. I mean, the bottom line is they would have beat Toronto. I think we all know that. Having said all of that, he decides to go to Brooklyn. You got a guy like Kyrie that was in Cleveland. Kyrie's talking about how, excuse me, you're the first guy that I don't mind, taking a shot in the clutch rather than me, stuff like that. So LeBron goes to L.A. LeBron handles his business. He delivers a chip. He's the king again. The king has a crown again, as opposed to just calling himself the king for the last 3+ years. Now he truly is the king again. He's the best in the world. You, KD, you were not healthy. You come back, I still believe KD can average 27 in his sleep. Whether or not he's going to be the same remains to be seen. But remember, his success isn't predicated on his athleticism. He's 6'11" with a 7'6" wingspan that has a handle and has range that can rival Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. This brother is that elite. And so when I look at it and I look at the squad that Brooklyn has with LeVert and all of these boys and the kind of crew that they have together with a healthy Kyrie and a healthy Kevin Durant, there is no excuse not to make it to the NBA Finals. And if you go up against LeBron, LeBron is standing there as the king with the crown. What are you going to do?
Two things.
That's what this is about.
Two things. One, looking back on it, thank God Kawhi didn't sign with the Lakers like LeBron wanted him to. Because it would have cheapened the accomplishment.
No question.
That's something KD's got to understand. When he joined a 73-win team with another MVP on it and Steph and a great team, well, obviously if you win 73 games and won a championship, it's discounted. People are like, you didn't really prove anything because you could not win the title. That's what would have happened if Kawhi would have gone to the Lakers. The fact that he didn't, LeBron is standing. Yeah, he had AD with him, but other dudes had stars with them too. LeBron looks better for it. That's the first thing.
Work around it. I can figure out how to work around it. If they ask me how can we get this in, you just need to know that the star players that ran deep run into the playoffs that were not out in March, that were in the bubble, that played late into the season, you may miss them the first month or so of the season to a degree. You're going to have the rest capability. LeBron Jameses of the world are going to have to rest. AD can rest. I mean, Kawhi, all those type of guys, they're going to want to sit tight for a little bit. I mean, if I had 131 days?
Yeah, it'll be 131 days in the old days.
In the old days. So,
now it'll be 72.
So if my body
Old days,
is,
2 years ago.
2 days ago. Yeah, 2
but
years ago.
But if my mind and my body are accustomed to that time off from a training standpoint,
Yeah.
now you're only telling me I got basically about a month? Because you got to, we're already in November. This is November.
Right.
So now you telling me I got to get up to speed here soon.
Right.
Not only that, they got the NBA draft coming up.
NBA
November
draft's
18th.
coming up. Yep. And then free agency right after that.
So you got all that packaged up. You got to get them together, get the team ready. You got to do all that in a very 6-week type window and then get on the court. How come they couldn't push it off until, instead of Christmas Day, maybe like New Year's Eve or something like that?
Mm-hmm. But then could you get 72 in and still have the Olympics? The Olympics is really big for a lot of the international.
Practice would start December 1st,
Right.
essentially, and then you would play that first game December 22nd. And then you would have, obviously, Christmas Day would be like the massive, typical NBA launch.
But before y'all go into training camp on December 1st, you usually get, what, a couple weeks in of hard training?
Yeah.
The month of November, you training. Like
October,
you training,
yeah, typically October you start, and then you start playing games in November.
but the October's gone now.
Yeah, I'm just saying typically, yes.
So now you would be training in November to get ready for December 1st, because you can't come in off the streets to go right to December 1, right?
No, you would start training camp December 1. So guys,
No, I mean training on your own.
Yeah, you do. And well, guys have been. That's the thing, though. Guys have been training on their own since this whole thing. If you were one of those guys that decided to train on your own since the pandemic has started to a degree, right?
But I mean, guys that like were in the bubble, right, Jay? That got out the bubble, like a Dame Lillard or some of those guys. They've been training this entire time.
Not necessarily. I mean, guys, I would take time off.
Yeah,
Sometimes I walk away from the game for like a month.
Yeah,
just relax. Like Giannis is over in Greece right now. I'm sure he's getting shots here and there, but
it's
just
not the
chilling.
same
It's not
training
the same.
to get ready for training camp. Like in football, I trained to get ready for training camp, and training camp trained me to get ready for the season.
No, basketball, you come into training camp for training camp to get ready for the season.
Oh.
You don't do, I mean, unless you're like a Kobe or LeBron or Michael, these guys train all year long.
Yeah, see, that's how I
It's
was.
different.
So I trained all year long. The season was over. I took probably 3 weeks off. Even when I took the little fake 3 weeks off, I still was in there doing something, running, doing some stuff. And then I didn't really hit it hard until my little vacation time was over with.
But Zubin, this is what I would like to say about this whole thing happening. So I know Danny Green spoke out the other day a little bit about guys, maybe LeBron probably won't play. And look, that already exists to a degree, Key. It's called load management. We're going to see load management a lot in the first month and a half of the season probably. I guarantee you the biggest names will be playing on Christmas Day because the NBA will probably mandate that unless there's something catastrophic injury or some sort. But, you know, last night I'm sitting there and I'm going through social media. And did you guys see this whole story about Kim Kardashian and her 40th birthday party? So she rented a private.
What you looking at me for?
She rented because I was looking at you.
Calabasas.
No way Zubin knew about this.
Zubin looked at me like,
That's
Kim
Keith's
Kardashian.
It's Keith's neighbor in Calabasas.
I hate to say it.
Zubin.
It's just, every time their names come up, I just go right by it.
So she rented a private island for her 40th birthday party, right? And made some statements about, I got everybody. Everybody's been quarantined. Everybody's been tested. Don't worry, we took all the right safety precautions. And she got annihilated on social media. People are like, man, how tone deaf can you guys be? People are dying out here. People are losing jobs by the second. You guys are talking about renting a private island. So that took me to my thought about the NBA. Like, I don't think NBA players have the luxury of complaining about this publicly. Now, they do it behind closed doors to Adam Silver. That's one thing. But if you start coming out publicly and you're one of these guys, like Danny Green makes $14 million. Now, I hear you about the rest and about things of that sort. But the amount of money that guys are making, considering where they're at right now, like, all right, season may start early. You may not like it. But also, I mean, look at the job and look at what you're being paid in order to do this. So you have to tough it out to a degree.
But, Coach, isn't that different, though? We're talking about...
I'm not comparing. I'm just saying the sound of, like, and I'm happy that no NBA player has openly complained about this. These are conversations that you have. This is what happened to MLB, Zubin, when the players, it leaked out that the players were talking about all this stuff, and it just was a bad look for the league overall. So if there are any players, if they have issues, instead of being public about it, it makes sense to have behind-the-door conversations with Adam Silver about it. You fix it internally because you don't want this splash on all the good things that the NBA has done up until this point.
Well, I think from a body standpoint, though, and being tired, it's different because there are teams from the beginning when they shut things down that never made it to the bubble. So their rest is, I wouldn't call it an advantage, but they got more rest. They actually got time off where the Lakers, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the who did we beat? Oh, the Heat. It's so long
Celtics.
ago. So long ago. The Celtics, all of these teams were in the bubble. That time is shortened to get back to December 1. So when you look at it, I wouldn't necessarily call it complaining because if my body feels a certain way and I can't maximize my potential on the floor to give good basketball, it's kind of like not only am I not doing the fans a service, I'm not doing the NBA a good deed of service because I'm putting lousy play out on the court.
Yeah. So I guess my question to you would be, if that is the case, which is understandable, right? Do you go to the media and would you say that to the media that you feel it's not? That's what I'm saying.
I probably wouldn't talk to y'all anyway.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to the media and be like, this is not fair, right? Like you wouldn't say. You wouldn't say that. You can't. You don't really have the luxury of saying that right now. And yes, this is different, but also we're trying to manage different times here.
I couldn't agree more.
Let me ask you this though: so what happens if the season starts in December? What happens is there another bubble? Is it?
Well, these are all questions, I mean, depending upon where we are, that we're trying to find out the answers to.
Do you play in your own stadiums now? Like,
could you play a regional schedule so you don't have to travel as much? There's a lot of issues on the table. 2 quick points I got to bring up. One is obvious. Look, the league landed with the absolute thud. The NBA Finals ratings were the worst on record. So if they're going to relaunch again, they need everybody to be on board day one. The league cannot take for granted that the fans are going to be there because the most recent example shows, for whatever reason, even with the best, most marketable player the NBA's had in a couple decades was in the finals with the biggest brand in the sport.
On Eastern Standard Time.
On Eastern Standard Time, no late starts during the playoffs.